A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome to the Sunset Safari, where we are live from the Masai Mara in Kenya as well as from the Sabi Sand in South Africa. I have to apologize to the author of that poem because I can't remember her name. I learned it when I was 10 years old and it has buzzed around in my head ever since. I'd love to know what else lives in there, but I don't think we want to go down that road. My name is Jamie and this afternoon Fergus is just nodding. Fergus is on camera with me and you can get hold of us by sending through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Questions, comments, and as we spoke about a couple of days ago, poetic criticism. But I didn't write that one. That one's not mine. Definitely not mine. So starting off with a herd of elephants, of course, you will have noticed, or those of you who are very observant will have noticed that the female that we were watching earlier, has a little backwards-facing tusk. Not quite as spectacular as the elephant back on Djuma called Fang, but still very, very clear and very easily identifiable. I love gravity when it affects elephants. The way that they run down hills and then go up them again. Here come the rest, making their way over, down, trot, 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 trot. And then another dip. Trot, 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 and up the other side. This one, look, Ferg, it's got a hat. Oh, we've got the baby elephant in front. Oh no, the hat fell off. There's a piece of, it's still got a few strands. Yeah, it was a tasty hat, an edible hat, which actually would probably be the best kind of hat. I'll have the odd nibble every now and again. Baby elephant had grass all over its head. Because, of course, as entertaining as that poem no doubt was, young elephants do actually have to learn to use their trunks. Not for telephone use, but in general, that whole process sometimes takes them a little while. There are lots and lots, between 50 and 100,000, depending on how you count them, different muscles in that trunk. Down the length of it, across it, and of course, diagonal as well. Melissa, elephants don't really wag their tails when they're happy, but you are absolutely correct in that the tail is very much an important mood indicator when it comes to elephants. So an elephant that is relaxed will have a relaxed tail, and yes, it sort of swishes from side to side. When they are anxious or when they're upset, that tail is actually held out stiffly at a 90-degree angle to the bottom. So it sticks out very, very, very stiffly. And when they are focused, and it's actually one of the interesting things when you are with elephants, especially when you're walking up to elephants, is you can usually gauge exactly when they've heard you or smelt you, even if they haven't moved much at all. And that's when their tail goes completely still. So when that tail's not moving, when it's held completely still, it doesn't mean that they're anxious because they might be used to people on foot, but it does mean that something has caught their attention, and most of the time if you're approaching an elephant on foot, that is. I think that the author of that poem's name was Laura. Sorry, Megs, you're going to have to repeat. You broke up a little bit there. You're just going to have to repeat the name. I know Fox Hat is the one who sent it through, and thanks, Fox Hat. I would have hated to try and pass that. No, well, not try, but I would have hated to have left that poem. It was by Laura. Laura Elizabeth Richards was the lady responsible for that poem. If I remember correctly from when I was much younger and doing this drama I Stedford or whatever it was that I learned that for, I seem to remember she's no longer with us, but I like to think that if she were, she would have been appreciated the use of it in this context. Now, I'm sure you must have noticed this morning, we spoke about it this morning, throughout the day the wind has been howling, which makes conditions for searching for birds very tricky. Luckily, we film in 2 different locations. Let's go and find out if Tristan plans on finding you some pretty birds today.
Well, we do indeed, Jamie. We have a first look at another one of our summer migrants, the European beaters. So there's a nice little flock of them that is sitting on a tree and perched in the glorious summer sunshine. It is a scorching afternoon. It is really very warm. It's in the upper 80s Fahrenheit and close to about 30 degrees Celsius, so from the cold temperatures we've had recently. Nice change. Now, my name is Tristan, as Jamie mentioned, and on camera once again I have Wiem the Wildebeest, and well, it is coming to you live, like Jamie said, from 2 different locations, so you can ask lots of questions if you want to know about South Africa as well, and you can do that on #SafariLive on Twitter or the YouTube chat. Now, really nice to see the European beaters. They've unfortunately flown away while I've been sitting talking, but at least it's a first glimpse. We will see lots of them over the next few months as they glide around from these dead trees, catching all sorts of insects, but it was good just to catch up with them. It's been a long time since we've had European beaters on the camera, I think. How long since then? Well, I would say 3-4 months? No more. 5 months, 6 months. I forget where we are. We're in October, so no, they would have left in March, April, so somewhere around there. So it's been a long time since European beaters have graced our screens, and they are a very beautiful bird. Lots of beautiful colors on them. Now, I was mentioning that it is quite warm. It's a bit of a shock to the system in comparison to what we had yesterday, and so Wiem and I are both just kind of adjusting a little bit, and Wiem was saying we need to find a spotty cat, namely a leopard, because both of us are in withdrawal symptoms, and I think some of you might be too, because it's been a while since we had a leopard. We have been completely spoiled by all kinds of other things, but we definitely need our leopard fix, and so Wiem reckons a leopard in the shade, and we get to spend some time while it's still hot in the shade ourselves. So that's what we're going to aim for Wiem. Of course, we do need to go past Treehouse Dam to do our time lapse. We're all the way on Philemon's cut line, but I said to Wiem, let's just go and have a little look around, because this morning, with all the kind of commotion of the hyenas and then the tracking of lions and the leopard tracks that we had, none of the guys actually came this way and checked. So it's a completely unknown entity, the western side of Djuma, and so we thought we'll just come and have a little look around and just see. I also spoke to the guys about Gazelles and where they left him last night, and apparently he was moving towards Triple M, but they didn't find tracks for him this morning. So worth checking this side of the world. Maybe we get a little lucky, and maybe we find something of interest. Now, talking about interesting things, there is my friend Tayla McCurdy, who is always interesting and always quite bubbly and loud, and well, she's rearing to go on a chilly, sounds like, afternoon in the Mara, and so let's go across to her so she can give you a warm welcome from her side.
She just say I'm always interesting. Maybe not as interesting as this hyena who we've got out trying to keep nice and warm on the sand. There's actually quite a few animals out today in the wind. I'm surprised because it's not been very pleasant. A few elephants too, just scattered around on this very blustery day, and we'll get a little bit closer in a minute. But how's the safari going, everybody? My name is Tayla, and on camera with me today is Jahawi, and we're hoping to find all sorts of wonderful things. So remember to #SafariLive, remember to chat to us via the YouTube chat. You can send us any questions, you can do anything you like, really. So I'm going to go a little bit further around from this hyena. So it's been a pretty miserable day around camp today. Everybody was holding down their tents, basically trying to not let them blow away. It's the windiest day I've ever experienced in the Mara. It was sort of like a gentle breeze in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, and you know it was chilly and windy when you see an animal like a hyena, and typically they're nocturnal, but it's not uncommon to see them during the day. But the fact that it's come and laid out on the road, we know that they love to do this to try and keep nice and warm. And it's also a little bit sheltered there. See that little bit of a depression? The grass is a lot taller than the hyena too, so it'll be keeping out of the wind. Now, this is one of the many hyenas that we see in this area and around the escarpment. They come and hassle us in camp because they absolutely love to do that, don't you? Looks like it was also a little bit wet at one point, maybe earlier. But not too bothered by us, not too interested, just wanting to keep warm and enjoy itself. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. We're going to go try and find some big cats. So I had a mild panic today, like a serious panic. I even thought I was going to be late for safari. Don't tell anyone. Because I lost Maurice. I was almost murdered by Rebecca. Basically what had happened is, I don't know how Maurice ended up outside of the car, but I was sitting in the car and we were driving to go and fetch Joseph, who's our Scari this afternoon, and I went, where's Maurice? Where's Maurice? Searching everywhere. I unpacked everything 10 times. And then I just said to Jar, I was like, I'm not going on safari without Maurice, not at all. So we raced around and checked carefully on the road to make sure he didn't fall out. He had fallen out in front of Final Control. It was actually quite a morbid scene because he was just sort of laying there in the stones. And I tried to very sneakily pick him up off of the ground, but Rebecca was standing at the door and she was watching me. And then when she realized what had happened, yeah, I thought that was going to be the end of me. Your mate almost didn't ever see me again. And so that was scary, but he's here. He's safe now. He will live in my camera box because I feel like that's probably a good spot, and then he can't fall out. But for the drive, he can just sit there. I also went on a wonderful hike. In case you were wondering what I did today, I'm going to show you where I went hiking, but we might only be able to show you a little bit later, well, in about 20 minutes when we get around to that side. We went serious rock climbing though. It was amazing. We found a waterfall. Well, it will be a waterfall. It was just trickling. Once we have some decent rain, which I suspect we'll get in the next few days, it's going to be unbelievable. I can't wait to go back there. And there was this view that opens out onto the Sausage Tree Pride territory. So when we go around there, I'll show you. And there's these two little pools that are filled up. And it's perfect. It's like a bush jacuzzi. You could just sit there and stare at the animals down below you. It was really amazing. So that's quite nice. So I'll have to take Scott there because Scott also enjoys hiking and he just got back from his adventure. So I think he'll be joining us from tomorrow. And quite nice, just relaxing. You know what holidays are like. You need a holiday after your holiday. They get a bit exciting sometimes. So we'll have to go hiking there and see. But we must go when we've had lots of rain though. We have to go when it's lots of rain. So we're going to head around that way. We might as well check for the Sausage Tree Pride, see if those ladies have come out, and then I shall show you the spot that I went rock climbing today with David and Craig. But in the meantime, I'm going to send you back across to sunny South Africa where Tristan is looking for spots and he's checking the watering holes.
I am indeed, Tayla. It's a hot afternoon, and so waterholes feel like a good place to start. And we had a little warthog in a mud wallow. Unfortunately, decided as soon as we stopped that it was going to do its best diker imitation and literally put its tail between its legs, or actually, sorry, above its bum, and run and fly off into the bushes. So we unfortunately lost that fairly quickly. But waterholes, I feel like at this time of the day, maybe it's a little early to be checking them. It's still searingly hot, and so a lot of the animals are probably still sitting in shade for now, and they'll only come down to water a little bit later. But you never know. None of this area was checked this morning, and so ultimately Treehouse Dam seems like a good place to actually start and to try and sort of figure out what's been going on this side of the world. So far it doesn't look like too much has moved around. Hello, little Steenbok. We didn't see you there until the last minute. There's a very relaxed male Steenbok that's just giving us a stare down. It's almost like if you're going to challenge me, then you're going to have to come. Well, if you want to use this road, you're going to have to challenge me, is almost the way he's looking at us. Now, the Steenbok lately seemed to have been far more relaxed than normal. We've had a lot of sightings, really close sightings. Maybe it's because I've got a wildebeest on the back of the vehicle and they feel a lot more comfortable with the antelope brethren as we move around. Who knows? But the Steenbok are definitely, at this stage, far more relaxed than what I've been seeing lately in previous sort of months. It's really quite strange to have long visuals of Steenbok and enjoy them for long periods of time. And you can see that this little one is having a full go at some stalks there. Now, the interesting part about this is that the Steenbok, you would think, would be trying to maximize the nutrients that are around you after a dry winter and be feeding off more green shoots, the shoots that are growing after the rain that we've had, and the warm temperatures started the growth of grass. But it seems as though it's chewing on rather old, dry stalks. Now, I wonder why that is. It's strange thing for Steenbok to do. The thing about them is that they can survive in even the harshest climes because, well, they get moisture from dew and all kinds of other things, and they also have a ruminating system, so they're able to maximize every little bit of nutrients. But I don't know if maybe there's a little plant growing in amongst the grass that it's actually feeding off. Maybe that's what's happening and I'm just missing it with all the glare. I can't see that nicely if it's feeding off little leaflets or if it's feeding off grass. And it seems like little leaflets on that tree, so I suppose that makes more sense. Palin, I think difficult to say. I mean, these Steenbok do really well in the hottest part of the day. They really are able to kind of, being small animals, don't actually lose too much moisture. They also are able to kind of find places and lie down. They're a lightish color, which means they're reflecting light a lot better. So they do fairly well. I'm just trying to think what else would be kind of mid part of the day. Everybody really suffers a little bit. It's not easy for any of these animals, and that's why most of them try and find shade. You'll very seldom find a lot of animals right out in the sun in the middle part of the day. Everything will try and find shade, and you'll find that they'll try and utilize any technique to try and keep cool. So from panting, rapid breathing, to drinking, to shade, to areas where there's a breeze that's blowing. It just depends on the species. So I don't think any species is really comfortable, but these Steenbok are definitely one of them that doesn't do too badly when it's really hot and dry. They tend to be ones that kind of survive quite well. You find that the ones that really suffer are the cats. They ultimately are the ones that have the worst time during the hot part of the day, particularly things like male lions. That big collar of fur is highly uncomfortable and very hot, and it's sometimes why you see in summer months that the manes actually don't seem to appear as full as they do in the winter months, and that's just because they lose a little bit of their hair and it kind of gets a bit thinner just to deal with the hot weather that we have out here. So Steenbok, what else? I'd say probably your impalas are okay, zebras tend to be alright, wildebeest are not too bad, so you are very relaxed. Oh, there we go, off you bound. But it took a while for that Steenbok to actually kind of decide to move. Now, of course, you'll find things like buffalo and elephants and the likes will often utilize water in order to try and sort of cool themselves down. So they don't actually cope well with heat, but they are able to find ways to cool themselves down, and obviously elephants have these ears and that helps them, but they'll all try and find water and mud wallow and soak their skin and try and cool down using water, which a lot of the antelopes can't do because ultimately they're not big enough to be able to stay away from things like crocodiles, and also being in a mud wallow is sometimes a risky business because if things like lions come around and they're able to surround you or they sneak up on you, you can't get away as quick in water, and so really wallowing is left to most of the big animals, except for maybe warthogs who have the right kind of skin for it as well. They don't have as much hair and therefore it's not as difficult to also groom out. Right, now we are approaching Treehouse Dam. Will there be some luck? It's been a while since we've had anything at Treehouse Dam. We had a good run for a while and lots of sightings of cats and leopards and all kinds of things here, and it seems to have gone off the boil a little bit, so I'm going to just check and hope that maybe, just maybe, something's lying around just somewhere. Jerry, this is a very good question, and one that's quite pertinent to this time of the year. You're saying with all this heat around, how often do wildfires start or happen in Djuma? Well, Jerry, the thing is not that often, just because we tend to put anything out that starts, as soon as we see a fire, we put it out, and the reason for that is because of we have situations where we have lodges and vast tracts of land can't just go left when something is burning. So it's not that common, but yes, it can happen. Lightning strikes, particularly now as we start going into the summer and we get these big thunderstorms at night. Big bouts of lightning can definitely cause a fire to start, and in my time in the sands I've seen a couple really big fires. We had a major fire in 2010, another one in 2011, and then there was a really big one again in 2014. So they happen quite regularly. Some of them unfortunately are actually arson, and so that's a lot of the time poachers, particularly rhino poachers, that will try and light a fire very close to the boundary of the reserve. And the reason why is as soon as there's then the next rains, that grass starts to grow where it's burnt, and that's nutrient rich grass. It's really good grass, and so rhinos particularly will head into that area, and it makes it much easier for poachers to be able to hunt them. And so that does happen from time to time, but natural fires do also occur. Lightning strikes cause a few fires to rage in this sort of time frame. So normally September, October, November are all the dangerous months for fire, and even now you can see the bush is not exactly wet and not exactly very green, and that means that there's still a big risk at the moment. Now, there's actually a warthog busy walking off. I was talking about mud bathing warthogs. It's unfortunately disappearing, though. I don't think we're going to be able to get a view of it. Maybe. It's just doing its best hiding impression right behind a tree, and so I was hoping it might come out. Oh, there we go. It's running off now. So we'll just leave that. Now, of course, it's also time to get VM on camera once again, because he's going to go and do our time lapse. Thank you, VM. So VM is not wrapped up nearly as much as what he was a few days ago. He's far more summery, although he's still got long pants on, which is, I'm sure, quite hot and warm. Say hello, VM. There we go. There's VM waving to everybody, smelling like his vanilla cake again. Palin, yes, wildfires are a crucial part of certain vegetation. This area here, we do need wildfires at times, and so what happens is, because we put out a lot of the fires due to safety concerns for lodges and people and all of those kind of things, fires will be replicated. So they will have a fire program basically where certain blocks or certain portions of land are burnt in a rotation through the years, and they'll try and get a situation where it's kind of, depending on the vegetation type and depending on soil types and all these kind of things, certain vegetation responds to more frequent burning than others, and so you'll find a situation where they'll burn certain sections, and that will then do the job. But we're not as reliant on fire as some of the other parts of South Africa. So down in the Cape, where there's a fynbos system, fynbos needs fire pretty much every season in order to really sustain itself and survive. We don't have that situation here. We just need fires every now and then to be able to keep a lot of the moribund, which is built up grass and stumps and various other things, gone, and then also just to rejuvenate certain areas. Now you can hear the Egyptian goose are very unhappy at the moment, and the reason why is because I think there's an intruder that came in, and that's why there's lots of honking and hissing, and there it actually comes. Now I wonder if there's going to be a lot more noise made as this one decides to fly over. There we go. You see how the wings are out. It's because an individual flew over that's not welcome, and so they were displaying with their wings out, calling, saying, this is our waterhole, stay away from here, you are not welcome. Now it is going to land there, and you see as soon as it lands and actually stops flying, the others quieten down, which is fairly pleasant too, because Egyptian geese do make a serious amount of noise. But well done. It was a good landing, considering you have webbed feet. They're not easy to perch when you have webbed feet. They're not like the passerines, so the starlings and various others that are able to. But now this one is going up, and I think is going to try and make a bit more noise. Now I wonder if there's going to be a third one that's going to join up there. Now it could be a situation where it's adults with their young ones, but I think it's more an intruder, just given the amount of noise that we've been hearing. Right, everything's settled. I think that's it. Everybody's now decided we all know each other. We're all okay. No more squawking and squeaking for now. And that's about it to Treehouse Dam. Unfortunately, our little dry spell at Treehouse continues when it comes to the cats, or actually any animals. We really haven't seen too much around Treehouse Dam. There's been a few impalas and various other things, but that's about it. There's not really been much in the way of elephants or even buffalo or anything like that. And so hopefully Treehouse will start to come into its own again. The more we have these hot weather sort of situations and no rain, the more Treehouse and TwinDams start to become the places to go to. Much like what we saw in September when it was very dry and these were the only two dams that held water. A lot of animals made their way towards here because all the mud wallows didn't have water, and so you had a situation where these dams were vitally important for the sustainability of the animals in this area, and I think we're going to head back into a situation like that. I've been checking a lot of the mud wallows over the last few days, and they're all starting to dry up now. There's very few that are left. Now, one animal that we do see quite a lot around this area is the waterbuck, and so they generally are around. It's also a good indication that not much has been hanging around the dam itself predator-wise, because waterbuck, funny enough, are quite perceptive creatures. I find that they are difficult for the predators to hunt, even though they do catch them from time to time. They tend to be quite alert and quite sort of aware of what's going on, and if there's a predator around, they generally move quite far away. They're not like the impalas that will move a short distance and then carry on feeding, but the waterbuck tend to move a long way away and try and find somewhere else. But you can see that waterbuck has found itself a little oasis. So there's a seep that is coming through and bright green grass, which is probably super tasty. It's also probably nice and cool underfoot as well. And so that makes a perfect place to graze. James, you are asking which antelope did I say was the least adaptable to the heat? Probably, that's a difficult one actually. I didn't say anyone in particular. I was saying that things like buffalo and the rhinos and those kind of things need to use mud and water in order to be able to control their body heat because of their size and just their general coloration. They absorb a lot more heat than the lighter colored animals. But I would say in terms of antelope species, I would say the ones that suffer the most probably are the waterbuck. The waterbuck has a much thicker, denser fur than all the other animals, and I would say in summer months in the hot temperatures, waterbuck must really have a tough time with it. It can't be comfortable being covered in so much fur, and so they have to try and adapt to that and use a lot of shade and hang around cooler areas, which is normally drainage lines where water is normally occurring in summer. When you get drainage lines, it's areas that water will flow in, and so it's not generally a little bit cooler in those kind of areas, and so you find that they'll hang around in those sections. I'd imagine Nyala males also must have a tough time in the summer. All that fur just can't be easy at all to deal with. So those would be the two, although I don't know the actual answer in terms of scientifically. I just want to see here. I thought I saw a footprint. No, I don't think so. Hello impalas. There's a couple of impalas that are drifting off as well. Now I didn't do it. You want to know if waterbuck are able to sweat. Now I'm not 100% sure about this because their sebaceous glands, which are their glands that are in their skin, they typically release obviously this substance that helps to just repel water and coat their fur. Now whether or not they sweat, I'm actually seriously not 100% sure. I don't know. I'll have to go and do a bit of researching for you and see whether they do. I would imagine there must be some way that they can cool themselves down, so that maybe they have a system where they've got rather large nasal openings that they are able to breathe, and air is kind of transferred from there and cooling down blood vessels in the nose, much like the oryx. Or they have a situation maybe that they do sweat and secrete some sort of moisture that perspiration can take place. Now at the top of that tree, what have you spotted? Because I think we've spotted different things. The kudus. No, I was looking at the top of the tree at one was a sunbird and two was the violet-backed starling, but it's right at the top of that tallest tree in the sort of center part. There was a beautiful, what looked like a white-bellied sunbird that was flying around in there, and then there was also a violet-backed starling, which I think is the one on the right-hand side. But well spotted on the kudu, at least. At least you saw something that I didn't, and I think the kudus are probably making their way towards Treehouse Dam as well, and to go and just find some shade and some water. So we're going to carry on and see what else we can find and see what else is out here. I believe Jamie has found something that, again, I wish we would see here, because they are absolutely exquisite birds to see.
Although the windy weather might not be particularly good for birding, there's certain birds, of course, that are unmistakable and out whatever the weather. This morning we spent a bit of time with the secretary bird, and this afternoon we're going to spend time with one of the most spectacularly extravagant birds of the Masai Mara, the crowned crane. And we've got a pair of them that are really playing with us, Fergus, at this point. What they've been doing is disappearing behind this patch of bushes, and then you think that you've got them out on the right side, and then all of a sudden they change their minds and they come out. There we go. So a little Tommy, Thompson's gazelle on the left. And I can completely understand why Tristan feels a little jealous that we get crowned cranes here and not in Djuma. There's certainly some really special aspects to the birding in the Masai Mara, but of course there's other birds on Djuma that are equally intriguing, but none of them have quite such a fine crown as the crowned crane. Not that I can think of anyway. They're so striking and so almost alien looking in their design. So absolutely I understand. Don't worry, Tristan, your time will come. So of course this afternoon, hi guys, this afternoon will be Fergus's last drive in the Mara for a while. And possibly my last drive for 2 weeks while I'm on leave. So we're bumbling without any particular purpose. We are bumbling in the direction of Brent's lions from this morning, though. Arena, you say it almost looks like they went to the beauty shop. I know, absolutely. You almost expect them to have matching toenails on the tips of their feet. They definitely look as though... And it's that straight out of the hair salon look. It's not the day after or anything like that. It's the straight after. It stands up so perfectly. Everything is so perfectly in place. My favorite part of the crowned crane, which I don't know, it's the part for me that I find the most beautiful, is not so much the wattle or the crown or the russet-colored tail feathers. It's actually the grey-white transition on their necks. It's sort of almost a blue-grey, and the way that it feathers out, so it looks like a gradual shading change. Of course now, because I've mentioned that, neither of them want to face us, which is quite inconsiderate. There we go. That's my favourite part of a crowned crane. Grabbing at various insects and seeds. That's a good question, because we know that this is a pair of a male and a female. Now, you want to know if we can differentiate between the male and the female. Now, as far as I know, there's no sexual dimorphism, so they're very similar. But what I'm trying to just double check is to see if the male or the female is bigger. Now, my suspicion would be that what am I looking up? Crowned crane. That the male would be larger, rather than in the situation like a raptor where the female is larger. But I'm honestly not sure. But there's no striking or immediate difference. It's not like a batalier or anything like that, where you can immediately tell from the difference in coloration. Or, for example, like a saddle-billed stork. I'm just wondering if perhaps the female... I don't know. I'm not sure if one is slightly larger than the other. And checking up on myself, there's no info on it that I can access easily. I'm sitting with my bird book, just double-checking, and I can't find anything about it. So no, I don't think that there is an obvious and immediate difference. Right, so we've already spoken about the fact that these birds look like they've been to the hair salon. It seems as though it's a day of luxury all around for the different animals, and Tayla's buffalo are enjoying some time at the spa.
They are indeed, Jamie, and the funny thing is that we're at exactly the same mud wallow, but I wonder if it's the same buffalo that we watched yesterday doing exactly the same thing. Rolling about and just enjoying themselves, although today they seem to be covered in a lot more mud. I feel as though they've put a bit more effort into smearing that beautiful, stinky, slimy, terrapin-infested mud all over your body. I can't imagine that would be nice. I wonder, what do you think about this, Jahawi? Because my mind wanders sometimes. Do you think it would be easier for a buffalo to get away if it's just had a mud wallow like this from a lion jumping on it? Do you think the lions would slip trying to grasp onto them? Maybe. I don't know why I just thought of that, but I would imagine if I were to go and touch that buffalo now, my hand would just slide right off. It's full of clay, and I don't think a lion would be as easily be able to hold onto a buffalo if it just freshly come out of a mud wallow and it was covered in head to toe. So not when it's dry, when it's slippery like that. I wonder. Now we'll have to add that to our list and watch lions hunting buffalo after they've just wallowed. That'll be an interesting sighting, wouldn't it? Oh, okay, very creative. You said, what a lovely buffalo koozie. Very nice. I like that. We may have to take that. It's now ours. We're going to be using buffalo koozie from now on to describe buffaloes in a mud wallow. So thank you very much, Umkai, for that. But yes, they are. They're just going to relax here for most of that. There was actually a third one, but it's disappeared behind the car now. And I'm quite happy that these boys are fairly relaxed. I mean, they're watching us. They're staring at us. They keep pointing their noses to the sky every now and then. And I'm sure when I start my car again, they're going to have an absolute heart attack. But they're fairly tolerant of the vehicles, these fellas. I mean, we must only be about 5 or 6 meters away from them. We're not far at all. You can hear the muzzle snorting. That might also be the flies. You can see they're very annoyed by those biting midges. Oh, this is lovely. So you can guess what we're trying to do then. If you watched yesterday, you should remember that this is where the Sausage Tree Pride were. Now, Dede Tom, you said that you can hear your mom shouting, "Get out the mud!" Yep, that sounds like my mother too. I was also always in the mud. I was the dirtiest child ever. I'm still pretty dirty. I cannot stay clean. I'll put clean clothes on before every single game drive, and then I just walk to the car. I don't even have to touch it, and I'll look down and I'll have grease somewhere, or there'll be a mud stain. It's an absolute nightmare. And never, this is a word of the wise, never trust a safari guide that hasn't got dirt on either their face or their hands or somewhere on their clothing. Because I don't know how, as a guide, you do not get dirty. It's absolutely impossible. Maybe Jamie. I wonder if Jamie will agree with me. Jamie's fairly clean, though. Her clothes always seem to stay very clean. Brent will agree. Brent has always got some form of a mud stain on his body somewhere, or dust, or whatever it may be. Scott, he keeps it pretty tidy. I don't know how I managed to do it. I think if I was going to be an animal, I'd end up being a buffalo, because I'd just be dirty all the time. Or a warthog, maybe. Or a hyena. Any one of those. They all like mud just the same. Big shake, getting all that excess mud off. Now, it's quite cool. Obviously, in South Africa, you know that we do walking. And we're always looking for fresh signs of animals, because you don't want to intentionally walk into a buffalo. And when a buffalo has wallowed like this, when they walk, you can actually see that they leave a trail. And if you just follow that route on the floor, especially where the road passes, where that buffalo has just walked over, you can actually see the mud on the ground. You see that? So that's how you would tell that something has walked there. And maybe the ground would be too hard and you wouldn't see a footstep, but there's also buffalo dung there, so that gives it away. So you would look for a track or some dung to identify what had been in that wallow. And then he's going to smear mud all along the grass that he walks on now, and only tomorrow it will probably dry, or maybe a little bit later today. You can see where they've been walking and laying. Now, Mr. P, you're wondering if the mud kills all the ticks. It does. It helps suffocate them, especially if they've submerged themselves in the wallow for quite some time. And that's one of the reasons why they, of course, do it, to keep cool, and then it also helps get rid of the parasites. And then you've got the terrapins. We saw a terrapin yesterday moving in between the legs of the buffalo. So they absolutely love it when they can find an engorged tick on a buffalo. They'll quite happily just pull them off. I suppose a bit like the oxpeckers, but not quite, slightly different. I don't think they're as effective as an oxpecker. But let's carry on. Let's look for these lions, because that's what we said we were going to do. I don't know where the Sausage Tree Pride of lions have disappeared to. They do this to me all the time. I might have to stop talking about them for a while and give them a bit of the silent treatment until they start behaving better. I mean, they were my go-to lions at one point. I think they're all of our go-to lions. Whee! There we go. So we'll drive about on the escarpment for a little bit longer. We're always looking for that female cheetah that has been seen a couple of times along here. Hopefully we'll find either. Tristan he's obviously left Treehouse Dam and he's on to his next one. It's one of my favorites. Let's go across to Tristan at TwinDams.
Well, TwinDams is looking very different to what it normally does, and overnight, because we were here yesterday, so I know this, it has sprung up with blue-green algae, and lots of it. There is this green sludge that has come through now, and I wonder if it's to do with a bit of the heat and rain, that there's all of a sudden this thick green sludge like algae that has grown on the surface. It is a really beautiful color, and it is vibrant and it is green, but it is not great. It's not the best thing to have in water, and if you get too much of this blue-green algae, it can can actually be toxic to animals. So it's something that needs to just kind of be watched. But it does happen when dams are drying and the end of the rain season. Often why that happens is there's an over sort of fertilization, and it's because water levels or water percentage gets less. Animals defecate and urinate and all kinds of other things inside there, and so this blue-green algae has a lot of nutrients that it can feed off, and then it grows quite quickly, especially with hot weather. So as soon as you get hot sun, then you find that the algae populates quite quickly. So it looks crazy, it's amazing how fast this has happened, because 4 or 5 days ago there was not even a single drop of this stuff, and now it is spread all across. And I want to actually watch it and see over the next few days, will this carry on, or will it still kind of dissipate out, and we'll see a situation where it was just a bloom of algae and that was the end of it. The other thing about TwinDams today, which is very noticeable, is how quickly it's drying. It seems to be moving a lot faster than normal. If you look on the edge of the water hole itself, you can actually see a massive ring where the water is dropping as we speak. So it's basic, well, not as we speak, but it's dropping as the days are going on. When you get a dark section like that, that is an area where water once was in the last few hours or days. At least a day probably would be at the most, and that would mean that this is drying very fast, much faster than the rate that we saw a few weeks ago during the winter. But it's probably because of the increased temperatures, although it's been 2 cold days prior to this. The other thing that I managed to find, which was crawling over my knee while I was sitting here looking at the algae, is this beautiful beetle. It's got the most incredible markings. It's a very cryptic kind of marking coloration. It's busy trying to shelter from the sun. So I'm going to help Viam and just not get 2 tones there, because otherwise Viam has a problem with balancing the light. But look at that coloration. Now imagine this little beetle on a sort of barked tree like a marula or something like that, where there's a little bit of white speckling. This is just going to blend in incredibly well and be super difficult to spot. So the camouflage on this beetle is absolutely insane. Now I think it is one of the click beetle species. It looks like the right shape for a click beetle. I might be wrong, but I think it is. It's got the right sort of long body and then that biggish head. And why they're called click beetles is because, and I tried to see if it would click when I took it off my knee, and it didn't. So that's why I'm a bit skeptical, but the shape is right. But why they would be called click beetles is generally if you look on their head, so I'm just going to use my finger so you can see a size difference. There's the head, and then you've got the thorax and the abdomen. Now the thorax has got this hard shell over the top of it, and that would then overlap with the wing casing. And so what happens is as they get picked up, they will, or if they sort of fall and they fall on their back, you'll find a situation where they click their head to try get away, and it makes this loud sound, like essentially a clicking sound, and that's how they'll revert themselves back onto their feet if they fall on their back, or sometimes even wiggle their way through from a predator, because a predator hears the sound and gets a little bit nervous and moves off. So I think it is one of the click beetle species. I might be wrong. If I am wrong, let me know. #SafariLive if you know exactly what this beetle is, but I think it's of that particular family. But isn't it beautiful? Regardless of what species it is, the markings on this beetle are absolutely wonderful. There's browns, there's greys, there's whites, and I'm thoroughly enjoying seeing all of the arthropods back in this, starting to slowly but surely come out. So it's been wonderful to find all these weird and wonderful little creatures in the vehicles in the mornings, and generally just around the camp and all kinds of other places. So it's been quite nice. Now I'm a bit worried about this beetle getting sort of falling off, so what I'm trying to do is I think I'm just going to try and put it back on my jersey, which is where it was in the car, and leave it there for the rest of the day, and it can decide what it wants to do later tonight, because ultimately it must have come from the camp area, and I don't want to take it out of an environment that it normally works, but it is going to go for a nice long drive. Riti and many others, you're wondering if the water could cause stomach issues to the animals and many others. Well, yes, it can cause a problem. It can cause diarrhea, which obviously then leads to dehydration and possibly then death. And so blue-green algae poisoning is something that we have to watch out for. Not last month, the month before, in August, there was a bit of an outbreak of it in another dam not too far from here, and there was actually a zebra that died from it. And so it can be a bit of a problem, but most of the time the animals' constitutions are so strong that they are able to deal with this, and as long as they don't drink from the side where the algae is, so you see that algae is all kind of pushed into one corner, they should be fine. If they drink from the other side, which is the sort of shallower side, there's no algae there, and so theoretically they should be okay. The concentration of that water over there should be enough to kind of allow them to drink and not be affected in any way. But it is something you ultimately have to watch. If the entire area and the entire TwinDams sort of portion becomes one solid thick layer of that blue-green algae scum, then it's not a good thing at all. And you'll find actually the animals won't drink there. They'll just literally come and they'll look, and then they'll walk off and go to the next one. So it's probably been brought about by a duck somewhere else, or a Egyptian goose, or maybe a lapwing that brought the spores from another pan that had it. And especially now, because we had that rain where a lot of these small pans filled up, and with the heat and these small pans and the nutrient-rich environment that those small pans are, algae blooms happen quite quickly. And so as those are drying, birds are moving around in there, some animals are moving around in there, they then fly to the next water hole like this, and they transfer those algae blooms, and then you get a big outbreak of it. So as soon as we get rain though, you'll find that will disappear completely, and you won't have it anymore, and a little bit more water, then it'll be okay. So hopefully the rains will come and clean out TwinDams a little bit, but it's nothing to worry about just yet. There's still lots of water there that's clean and doesn't have as much. It's just amazing to see how quickly that algae grew, because like I say, yesterday there was probably, I would say, an eighth of how much algae we saw there today. So it is pretty interesting just to watch how quickly fungi can grow, and bacteria and those kind of things populate. You know, the small microorganisms often move a lot faster than everything else in terms of their lifespans and their growth and their taking over of an area. Right, Mulawati it is, I think. Given that it's hot, given that it's bright, it's sunny, it's really not easy to kind of see at the moment. It's quite glary this afternoon, and so I think Mulawati is a great place just to have a little look around, just to see what there is, and just kind of meander through the shady sections. Maybe we get lucky and something's been walking around in this area. I don't know. Obviously it's just pot luck as to what we can get out here. I don't think we saw any signs of animals coming into this area this morning, and so it's more just about having a little meander and just enjoying the beauty of the riverbed in this sort of hot afternoon. It's a great place for a number of the animals to be resting, and so look out for anything inside here. You can find pretty much any kind of animal in this particular section. There's lots of tracks for nyala and kudu and all kinds of other antelope species that have been moving around in this particular area, which is good news. So hopefully we will find something. Now, what is that over there? You see it's in the top of those branches. I think it's a fork-tailed drongo, but I might be wrong. The one that's going at a 45-degree angle off the bank. I think it's now moved. No, there it is in the background of that tree. There we go. So what are you? No, you're a scimitarbill. That's very cool to see. It's been a while since I've seen a scimitarbill, and it's got some sort of prey item. You see that? It's got an insect or something. So it's managed to catch itself a meal, which is very cool. Now, these scimitarbills are tough to get on camera because generally quite flighty. We see a lot of the green wood hoopus, and it's the same family, and you'll notice though that this has got a dark beak and not the red beak that we see in the green wood hoopus. It's also a much more black purple color than green. And these guys are generally on their own or in a pair, not in groups like we see. So much harder to get onto camera, much more silent. They don't make nearly as much noise as the green wood hoopus. So that's quite a cool bird to see. It's not one that I've seen in a while, and certainly not one that I've had on camera in quite some time. So super glad that we managed to find it. Also, the fact that it's got a kill is very cool. I can't see what it is. It's a flying insect of some sort that it's managed to grab. And this is the great thing about being in riverbeds, is you just don't know what birds you're going to find. There's lots of insects around in these areas as well, and so the greatest place for hunting birds like these scimitarbills that go after insects. You'll find also a lot of kingfishers in these places, a lot of different other insect eaters that will spend time around here. And there we go, down the gullet it goes, and you can see their beak is very unique in comparison to a lot of other birds. They've got these long recurved beaks, and they will use them to go into wooded areas and dig out wood boring insects and various other sort of insects that are flying around in this area. Very, very cool to see. So that was very nice. Like I said, you never know what you're going to get in a riverbed. It's always worth just bumbling around and looking. Lots of birds around generally, and it's really a great place to be. And I can tell you that most of us that present here at Safari Live absolutely love this little section and spend a lot of time here whenever we can. Now, talking about sort of other presenters, I believe Tayla Makorde has managed to find some luck this afternoon and find something that I hope that we might see as well today.
I suppose we do all love the Mulawati. It's a beautiful place, especially on a hot summer's day, to escape that heat. The perfect place to go. We are not escaping the heat though, because we're out in the open and it's burning down onto us. Luckily for the wind, I can't believe I'm saying that. but it is cooling us down. We're surrounded by elephants at the moment. It's quite a big herd. They're all quite spread out, and they're just grazing, eating all the delicious things. Most of them don't seem to be feeding on grass. A couple, one or two are, but the bulk of them are picking up little forbs just from the ground that we can't see, that are just growing in there. This is so beautiful. And there's a couple of little babies also moving about the herd. Now, Joey and I were just chatting about how many little ones we've been seeing. Typically, elephants don't have a breeding season. You know, it's such a long gestation period. It's difficult for the females to sync their cycles. However, I wonder if that's what's going on, because since September and even now in October, we're starting to see a lot of little ones, and it is a perfect time to give birth. I mean, even now for impala and things, we obviously saw them. They started, they started hatching, but impalas don't hatch out of anything. Got birds on the mind today, but they were being dropped already 2 months ago. When I first got here, we're just starting to see a couple of them. It's interesting. I've never noticed anything in particular in South Africa. I've seen little elephants, tiny new ones, all year round. But definitely seeing a bulk of them around here at the moment. So we haven't had any luck just yet with our lions. We're still searching. No luck with a cheetah. I did have some lion tracks coming this way, but they look heavily windblown from last night. So what I thought we would maybe do then is just change our route slightly. I know that the Sausage Tree Pride, they aren't up against the escarpment. Then they're typically just southeastish of the main road, somewhere around there. So we're gonna keep going, and hopefully we'll find them. I wonder if they're just not on a kill somewhere. I mean, there's so many spots. They could be up on their top rock. Oh, that's beautiful. We'll stop and have a look now. It's gonna get a better position. Hello, Ellies. Why are you guys so nervous? Don't worry. A couple of young bulls that don't seem to be particularly happy with me. Oh, let's see what they're going to do. You're going to come past, or one bull and a cow? They're just going to walk in front of the vehicle. No? Oh, that's so funny. You should just call me James Henry from now on. It's always funny how James, every time he puts a camera on an animal, it then uses the luxury facilities. But there's a tiny little elephant that's still having to stand on its tippy toes to suckle. Very, very sweet, very precious. But there's elephants all over the Mara at the moment. It's quite spectacular. Okie dokie. Well, we're going to keep searching, and hopefully we're going to find one of our cats that we are looking for. Jamie, however, has not got a cat, but it has also got a beautiful pattern.
A really beautiful pattern, and the Maasai giraffe that we see out here have, I feel, probably one of the most spectacular of all of the giraffe species that occur in Africa. There's something so artistic about the patterning of the spots on their skin. Now, he was drinking. I'm hoping he's going to drink once again, because for our new viewers, watching a giraffe drink is always it's a cumbersome process, and watching it can be really thoroughly quite entertaining, because they can't, of course, reach all the way down without having to spread their front legs so that they can get their head down to the level of the water. So there's a little puddle at his feet. Just trying to see if I can see what he's staring at. Now, there's a little puddle over there, and that's what he's been drinking from. There it is. There's the puddle. An interesting thing about this particular species of giraffe, and it's really quite clear on this particular gentleman, is the protrusion that is between his eyes on the top of his head. So he's got ossicones. Watch now, he'll duck as we do this. He's got ossicones, of course. Those are the horns on the top of his head. But you can also see there's a lump up between them. And that is the protrusion of his skull itself. That's solid bone. And that's an additional fighting weapon for when he decides to challenge another male giraffe. And he's been so obliging, this gentleman. He's also, as Fergus pointed out, which I didn't notice, but he's also got a very interesting face. It's a very pale face with very few patches on it. And of course, each giraffe is unique in terms of their patterning, and he's very, very pretty. Long eyelashes, slightly slightly wonky ossicone. But his face is really very pretty. Off he goes. Thank you, mister. He's been so obliging. He really has. He's been sitting here waiting for us. By the way, I double-checked in my other bird book, and the male crowned crane is slightly larger than the female. Sorry, just while I'm thinking about it. Wants to know how much giraffe need to drink in a day. Giraffe are actually, they'll readily drink when there's water available, but they are, in terms of the animals that we see out here, they're one of the animals that is quite well adapted to surviving with quite low levels of water. So one of the big adaptations, of course, for desert-dwelling creatures, and you do find giraffe species in the desert, is their loop of Henle in their kidneys is much, much longer proportionately than something like a human. So essentially where all of the water, as the kidneys filter the blood and as they sort of remove the toxins and the urea or whatever else it happens to be, as they filter the blood, there is a reabsorption process that happens in order to draw water back into the body so that it's not lost. And the longer the loop of Henle, the more water absorption can occur. So they've got quite long loops of Henle within their kidneys, within the nephrons. Yes, within the nephrons. So they can actually survive on minimal amounts of water. They're also very, very good at extracting the water from the leaves that they eat. As to exactly how much they drink per day, I don't know. I mean, when you watch a giraffe drink, it's not a process that goes on for a very long time. And it always seems to be actually quite low amounts of water that they consume. They drink a little bit, and then they lift their heads up, and then they take a couple more sips. It's not like sitting and watching an elephant, for example, that will drink liters and liters of water in one go, and will repeatedly draw water up into their trunks and pour it into their mouths. There's all kinds of, I know Tristan's been talking about this, and animals that cope best with the heat. There's all kinds of special things that animals can do in order to help to keep themselves cool. I think I've got exciting news for you, but I'm not going to share it yet because I'm still not 100% sure if my info is correct. So I'm going to go off and search for the creature that I've been told is about. Let's go across to Tayla, who has found an animal that really would not like to meet my surprise.
I feel as though this is the only luck we're going to have today is with buffalo and elephants. We've come across a bizarre scene, and we're just taking a step back and watching at the moment. There's a huge herd of buffalo. I mean, you can see they're streaming in. And when we first spotted them, just after you left us, they were crossing the road, all calm and collected. No, nothing seemed out of the norm. And then the next minute, there was one cow that started running with her nose towards the sky as if she was about to chase a lion or a predator of sorts. And she ran into the lugger, and then she didn't come out. And then there were a whole lot of other buffalo that followed her, also sort of running and bucking and bronking. They went into the lugger, and then they would come around this sort of shrub where you can just sort of see below those buffalo. And then they were looking around there, and then they were running back into the lugger. I don't know what they're doing, but I'd quite like to go and investigate. So let's go a little bit closer now that they've settled. Obviously, when animals are in a bit of a frenzy, you don't want to go and drive right up to it. So we just sat back. I just wanted to see what was happening. Now we'll go in a little bit closer. I don't know if I've ever seen buffalo do this before. Now they're running again. They're very nervous about something. Now we know buffalo are constantly on edge. It's just buffalo being buffalo. But today something else is up. Unless they're laying in the mud, I can't imagine though that they would charge towards a lugger. Or maybe they were just excited for a mud wallow. I don't know, it's all very confusing. And they kept going to a shrub. I honestly thought that there was a lion laying around here and they were going to chase it. It looked exactly like it, and then they were going around in circles, and now they look fine again. Now they were fairly relaxed. Well, as relaxed as a buffalo is going to get. So bizarre. See, now look, then they're running off again. And then they stop and they turn. So with all the wind, what also could be happening is there could be scents of predators swirling in the wind. Look at them. Off they go again. Now, Kerry, you're wondering what is typically a huge herd of buffalo? How many are there of them? Okay, well, When I was in Zambia, the smallest herd of buffalo I saw was about 800 buffalo or so, and then the biggest herd I saw was about 2,000, and it was quite common to see sort of between 800 and 2,000 buffalo together. In the Sabi Sand, we'd see huge herds of 1,000, 500, 200 was a typically common size herd of buffalo down in the southern sands, and here I would say it's about the same, anywhere between 100 to 150. Is a decent size herd, and they can get much bigger. I mean, actually, look where that. Hang on, I'm going to get a better view here. Sorry, we're just trying to get a view. I want to show you how many buffalo there actually are. We can't even see all of them, but if you look on the skyline, what we can do is, if we start to the last buffalo that we can see on the left, and then we'll work our way back across to the right, you'll see how many there are. So you can just see their silhouettes. See the tops of their heads, their horns, and that line extends all the way to where we are at the moment. You still see them, and there's still more behind them as well, so they're still coming. I don't know how many are here, maybe 300 or 400 buffalo. Maybe I'm being a bit too generous, but there's plenty of them. But they've settled down again. I think it's got to do with the wind. Maybe, like I said, maybe they were smelling all sorts of things. Maybe a lion had moved through this area. I did have trucks coming past. Maybe they defecated somewhere, and that scent is swirling around, and that's panicked the animals slightly. So I don't think we'll go driving in amongst that herd. We'll probably just let them do their thing and settle down a little bit. We know how much of a pain the wind can be to the animals, not to the predators. They want it. Well, of course, it helps them hunt, but for something like a buffalo, they're not going to be able to smell as well, they're not going to be able to hear as well, and this becomes a problem. So naturally, they'll be a little bit more jumpy than they normally are. Calm again. Incredible how that behavior changed like that. It was bizarre. I hadn't quite seen anything like it. Right, let's carry on though. Proud Cat Mama, you're wondering... No, let me get the car and go. You're wondering if not lions, we don't have lions, if buffalo sleep much. They do, they love a rest. That's a buffalo's favorite thing to do. As soon as it hits 12 o'clock midday, they sit down under the shade of a tree and they ruminate, or they wallow away. So it's obviously a big risk for animals out here to sleep, like say you and I would sleep 8 to 10 hours. So they can't do that, because then they're not watching what's going on around them. It would be very easy for a predator to just sneak up and catch them. So they'll typically have sort of shorter rest periods, and with buffalo, you'll see them resting during the day normally, and then they'll rest sort of in the early hours of the morning. Most of the night it is spent grazing. Some will sit down, some will graze, and they'll take turns right throughout the night. But every time I've ever found a big herd of buffalo in the Sabi Sand, or even in Zambia, at first light they're sitting down. And then it's always nice to actually try and get in amongst the herd if they're relaxed enough. And we could do that quite often in the Sabi Sand. They were very, very relaxed, the buffalo there. Especially, obviously, when you're in the car. On foot is a different story. And you could just park, and then they'd all start waking up and go about, which was really beautiful. And with those big herds of buffalo, you can imagine in the harsh, dry winter months, all the dust that's being kicked up at sunrise, it's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite things. I always tell you how I love spending time in and amongst buffalo herds. But we're going to check this favorite road of the Sausage Tree Pride. Also, there's a leopard around here that has been seen before. Maybe we'll see that leopard. Tristan hasn't had much luck just yet, but I'm sure that's going to change.
Well, I hope so, Tayla. I hope we will have some luck a little bit later. We have had lots of luck over the last little bit, so we can't complain at all. Today's been a bit on the quieter side, but it's okay. We've had, like I say, had such a great last couple months here on Djuma that we can't really complain at all. We've seen so many interesting and crazy things that it's really been a special time, and lots of kind of unusual stuff. I mean, we had the honey badger this morning. I know we didn't get it on camera, but we had a honey badger this morning. We've had that cool track. I was just thinking about it now that I'm on Cheetah Cutline, of the wildcat dragging the scrub hare, which is really cool. There's been all kinds of strange things, the 4 cheetah, you know, so there's been a lot of interesting stuff over the last little bit. And so even if we have a quiet afternoon, well, that's okay too. It's always just nice to be out here and enjoy the bush and enjoy the kind of sunshine and the environment and all that brings. And this afternoon we've already had a couple of our migratory birds. We've had, in fact, actually, we had a cool thing that happened just now, and I completely forgot about this, but this was really cool. So just after we linked away to Tayla for the buffalo, or the elephants, I can't remember which one it was, but as we went away from her, we went round the corner in the Mulawati, and a squirrel dashed in front of us, and immediately it was evident that there was something in the squirrel's mouth. And so VM and I were both looking, and VM luckily got onto it very quickly and zoomed right in, and he managed to get this picture of the squirrel carrying its tiny little baby. The baby was only about that big, and it was carrying it, and it was just sort of running along towards a big tree, and then up into the tree it went. But it was so cool to see. I haven't seen a squirrel carrying its baby in many years, and so that was super special. I wish we could have got it on camera, but it's the way it goes. So it's two really unusual things today that unfortunately we've just had bad timing with, but super interesting. And like I say, it's just amazing to see this little mother carrying this tiny squirrel, and it was small, and it's just super cute as it kind of was huddled in its mom's mouth. It was very cool. So that's already something excellent to have this afternoon. Like I say, European beaters, Scimitarbill on a kill, lots of things to already celebrate. So even if we have not much luck, you never know. But we are heading towards Chitwa Dam anyway, because I feel like going to Chitwa Dam today. I feel like spending a bit of time there by the water, and who knows, maybe Hosana arrives or Thamba, one of them is in that area. We haven't spent much time in the afternoons at Chitwa for a while, and it's always a good spot when it's been quite warm. I find that the young boys tend to go there quite often and spend time in that area, so who knows, maybe we'll get a little lucky with a leopard around Chitwa Dam. It should be beautiful at the dam anyway. It's a beautiful, clear, rich day, and after that kind of cool weather, I'm sure there's going to be a flurry of activity by the water, so hoping to see a few birds down there. I'm sure there'll be a couple of the cuckoos around. I'm pretty sure that we'll see a number of swallows. The village weavers might be quite active, so lots will be going on, and should be a good place to spend a bit of time this afternoon. B. Wilson, I think I heard this correctly, but you're asking, have the fish returned to the water holes yet? So the thing is about fish, and there's certain types of fish that are annual fish, and so those fish grow basically hatch out of eggs that are dormant in the mud and then come out, and those are called killifish. We get one species of those. They're beautiful, bright blue and red colors, very pretty, very rare those. You don't see them very often. And then the other fish that you're referring to, so things like bream, or type of bream that we get here that we call tilapia, Mozambique tilapia, red-breasted tilapia, are the two common ones in this area. They will only really exist in the big water holes. So Chitwa Dam would most certainly be absolutely full of them. Big Dam in the west, Scimitarbill Dam that they have will have some in. I'm just trying to think where else. Maybe Buffelshoek Dam might have a few. There's a warthog over there. And there might be a couple other dams in the area that will still have a few of those. And then the catfish, well, the catfish are a special one because they can survive in very extreme conditions, and you'll find that they'll populate a number of the bigger water holes, and as we get more rain they'll then start moving to the smaller ones that fill with water. And so no, not quite yet have the catfish moved into those smaller water holes. We'll find that will be later in the summer when they fill up a lot more than what they are now. Now it's still very dry. You can see the surrounding grass and terrain is dry. It's still quite wintry, even though there's a bit of greenery on the trees and in the sort of base layer of the grass. There's really not enough water yet for fish to be able to be washed into dams or to be able to walk there in the case of catfish. Now I know that sounds really odd, but the catfish do walk, so they use their fins and they'll walk away, and that's because they can breathe air, so they can be on land and they can actually cover quite a long distance. The problem with that is obviously that a number of predators then grab them as they go along. So we will find a situation though that we will see some movement of fish in a little bit, and if we get a flood year, a lot of the fish go out of places like Chitwa Dam and will populate all of the riverbeds even. I remember after the 2012 floods, behind Chitwa Dam wall in the Muluwanini drainage, that as it goes towards Little Gowrie, there was hundreds of red-breasted and Mozambique tilapia all the way through, and even catfish as well, all in the little pools and puddles that were left by that flood. So it was very interesting. Right, I'm going to head to Chitwa Dam. Next time you see me, I should be around the water areas, and while I do that, let's go back to Jamie Patterson in the Masai Mara, and I wonder if she's wearing her Out of Africa hat this afternoon.
Here's some really very interesting behavior that drew our attention to these jackal. They were being chased by Topi. And they were being chased in particular by a female Topi with a young calf. And I've never ever seen that before. Now they're being dive bombed. Oh, guinea fowl. Now they're being dive bombed by the lapwings of the area. Obviously really not a species that is particularly welcome around here. I've never ever seen a Topi chase a jackal before. Is she going to go? Is he going to go as well? No, I don't think he is. What's going on? Tommy making sure that they don't go anywhere near her little one. Obviously, jackal are largely scavengers and largely will eat rotten carcasses or insects or berries and those sorts of things. But they are capable of hunting. We saw a jackal with a freshly killed scrub hare not too long ago, and a baby Thompson's gazelle would also potentially make an easy meal for them, which is why they are being treated with such wariness by the antelope. You can see them being watched very, very carefully, but I've never seen a Topi chase a jackal. I wonder if they didn't go for the just harass the Topi calf a little bit, just to see if there was any sign of weakness from it. And off they go. I'm going to go forward a little bit because there's very much bush in our way, as you can see. So that wasn't my surprise, but I'm a bit concerned that my surprise might actually have vanished. I'm not wearing my Out of Africa hat, and I have to tell you why I'm not wearing my Out of Africa hat. Apparently Tristan apparently made mention to it. Apparently the sound was just so terrible because we wear our microphones in our hats, and apparently the wind passing over the microphone was driving people crazy. So unfortunately, no. Until I can figure out a solution, the Out of Africa hat has been put aside for the live safaris. What you up to, Jackals? I really think they're lurking about looking for baby Thompson's gazelles. And the Tommies are not very happy with them. And that one on the right is probably a mother. As you can see, and that one as well, you can see some of the Thompsons are not really reacting as much as the others are. And there's a chance that there's young Tommies around here. Paula, you say don't jackals usually wait for dark to come out? They are active pretty much all the time. That jackal's found something. I don't know what it's chewing, but it's definitely found something. Jackals I've seen them active at pretty much every single time, every hour of the day or night, except really right in the hottest time of the day, in the middle of the day. But otherwise, I've seen jackals around and about all the time. So yes, they do wander around, and they probably cover greater differences at night. But they are not strictly nocturnal. Shame, little Tommy, with your fluffy tail. Is she staring at the other jackal, or is she staring... It's hard to tell now, this distance. There's something quite odd about this whole scenario. I think these jackal were hunting. I really do. Now what's it after? Proud cat mama, small rodents, small things like scrub hares and tiny antelope. Baby antelope, a Thompson's gazelle would be on the menu of 2 jackal. A baby impala, there are recorded cases, I've never seen it, but there are recorded cases of family groups of jackal actively hunting baby impala as well. So anything that is small enough for them to take on. And their behavior here is almost like they're pushing for a weakness, or potentially, now we've seen, when we were driving would be a good example, although I've seen it with Imani as well, the cheetah, and we've seen just how still and quiet little baby Thompsons can be. Oh, jackal, you are not popular. Lapwings, gazelle, everything wants to chase you. And we've seen how still and silent they sit right up until the last moment. And there was that tiny baby Thompson's gazelle in the middle of the road a couple of days ago. And I think I think first of all they could be eating eggs, although the lapwings I think would be going even crazier at this point if that were the case. But they might be looking for a little Tommy hiding in the grass. There's definitely something that's keeping them here. Stalking and lurking. I think I'm going to go around. If that is what they're doing, then they'll still be here, and we won't be quite so far away. It might just take me a little while to get back onto the main road, and then we'll be able to get a little bit closer and hopefully figure out exactly what's happening. Okay, while we zoom around, let's send you over to Tristan, who is making his way to one of the more beautiful spots in the Sabi sand. Whoops.
Well, we are, but we've come here and we were busy setting up to look at the hippos, and the impalas have all just started snorting behind the dam wall. So everybody looks on edge, everybody looks very skittish. There's a couple of waterbuck that are here that are also looking a bit nervous. So we're just having a check. You can hear every now and then a little snort around us. Now, I'm not sure they've seen anything, but everybody seems to be fairly kind of confused. And it's not the typical kind of snort where you hear when you get something like a rutting impala. It's a bit different to that. Now I don't know, they've all kind of quietened down. They're almost looking down into this drainage line, so I want to just come and check. I have seen leopard in here before, so I might just come and have a little quick squiz and quick check just to see if there isn't maybe something lurking in this dip. It's a good place for a leopard to be. Also, I'm trying to spot around, just checking under all the shady spots. You can see how quickly the impalas are leaving this area, that maybe, just maybe, they've spotted something around here. It's worth checking and worth kind of just having a double look. Now, I wonder if our aerial's going to be okay through here. How are we going to do there? We're going to be alright for him? There we go. So we've just gotten through by the skin of our teeth. Oh, I wonder why they were all shouting. I can't see anything. So typically if they shout like that, it's when they've spotted something and they've seen a predator. But I don't see any sign of anything. I'm looking around as much as I can, just checking in the shady sections. Maybe there's a leopard that's lying low. Maybe there we go. There's a leopard. Thamba. We've got Thamba. Yes. That's so cool. I'm so excited. So I haven't seen him the whole time I've been back at work, and there we go. We've managed to find him. And I said there might be a leopard behind the dam wall. I was convinced that we might find one in this heat, and here we go. How cool is that? So he's lying in a bit of a horrible spot. It's not great for viewing, but it's still a leopard in the shade, and it certainly makes my day when I find spots. And the other interesting thing is his belly is full. So he's got a nice big round tummy, which means that he's obviously had a meal at some point. So that's really cool. I'm glad we managed to come down to Chitwa. That was a good stroke of luck, wasn't it? Well done, Wiem, as well. Viem's looking out and he heard the impala snort first before me. So there we go. It takes a bit of a team to be able to spot these things. How cool is that? I love finding leopards. It's the best thing in the world. Hello, boy. So, sorry, Megan, if you can just repeat that for me. My earpiece just pulled out. So, beard, you say bingo? Exactly. Bingo is the exact right word for this. This is so cool. I'm so glad we managed to find him. And luckily, he's also lying in, I mean, it's not the greatest place for sure, and we could have better areas, but he's lying in a place that at least we can find him and we can see him. And hopefully at some point on the afternoon, we'll spend some time here. There's lots of impalas, lots of waterbuck, lots going on. We can spend a bit of time and we can eventually then try and kind of see him maybe coming out. I'm hoping he's going to head towards the dam wall a little bit later, because that'll be absolutely beautiful if he does. But I'm super happy to see him. He's getting big as well. He's looking quite bulky. I suppose he's got a full tummy, so that's why, but it looks like him. I'm so excited that it's definitely not Hasana, I know that, but it does look like our boy Thamba. So this is where he's obviously been hanging about, is in this particular section. Hopefully he turns so I can just double check. Like I say, I might just be jumping the gun slightly, but it looks like him. Big enough paws, that's for sure. But isn't that beautiful? Now I wonder where the meal's been that they've been feeding on, because he's definitely got a meal somewhere, because that belly is massive. So he's fed somewhere, maybe even in this particular section, and so it might be a carcass hidden in this drainage. We once saw Hasana here playing with the scrub hare. It's exactly the same place where we had Hasana, and so maybe, just maybe, he's got a kill also hidden in this deep gully. It's a great place for a leopard to hide a carcass and to hide a meal, and so that could be where he is, sort of hiding it in somewhere in this little thicket, and he might have just gone for water and now has come in. And the reason why these impalas saw him is not because of actually him being out and invisible, is that they've got a lot of height. So a number of the impalas are standing on top of the dam wall, and that means they can actually see into this drainage and down, and that's why they were managing to spot him. But now they're not so sure, they can't really see him, so he's actually in a good place for hunting a little bit later. If some of the impalas stream past here again, maybe, just maybe, he might get lucky and hunt again. Although with the belly like that, I'm not sure there's going to be too much hunting going on by our young lad at all. But so good to see him. I'm so glad we've managed to kind of find where he is. And this is great news, because if he's here, it means he's been spending a bit of time in this area. And so now we know where he is. Thamba seems to be a character that spends a lot of time in the same place and doesn't seem to move around a lot. And so if we know where he is, it's a good place to check and to keep moving around and to keep coming and back to. And eventually, you know, we'll pick him up, I reckon, quite a lot in behind this Chitwa dam wall area. It's a great place for leopards. I've always had a lot of luck in this section and always kind of have had great leopard sightings behind this dam wall. It's shady, it's thick, there's a lot of gullies and drainages, which is great for hunting. So it is the perfect place if you are a leopard to spend time. But look at how beautiful those eyes are. It's most definitely Thamba, and I believe a lot of you agree that it is him. It's just now that I can see his face a little bit better, it is him. When I first spotted him, he just glanced over at us and those eyes just looked like him, and so that's why I got a bit excited by all of it. I didn't actually make sure. Kerry, you're asking, you wonder if he'll hunt tonight if he's that full. Well, Thamba is an interesting character, is that he always seems to be up to something, and so even with a full belly, I'd imagine he's going to be quite explorative and try and kind of move around, exploratory, should I say? I don't know where that other word came from, but he might move around, and if he gets an opportunity like impalas coming towards him, he'll most certainly take it. He's an opportunistic animal, he's a young male, he's finding his feet, and so any chance to hunt, will take. Even if he's full like this, it's also just the curiosity and the youthful exuberance in him that will make him kind of go after certain animals, even with a full tummy like that. So I don't know if he will be too full of hunting, but he'll definitely want probably water. You can see he's panting quite heavily. It's a hot afternoon, so regardless of what happens, I'm pretty sure he's going to move at some point and either go and drink, maybe towards the dam, which would be ideal, or he might go behind us here in this drainage section. There's a beautiful little water point inside there that's very reclusive and very kind of hidden, and it's a great place for a leopard to go and have a spot of water. So he might head in those directions. We'll just have to see. But what I think I'm going to do is just quickly reposition us, because VM's got not much to work with the back of his head, and if I reverse back, I remember being here with Sebastian and we actually found a way to view Hasana in a similar place when we just reversed a little bit and went into this clearing here. So VM, you're going to have to tell me if you can see. You won't see much just yet, but hold on. So it just goes to show you this deep gully. I mean, if from where I am right now, which is pretty much on top of Thamba at the moment, I can't see him at all. I don't have any view of him. I can't see any sort of sign of him. He's right below us, but is why he likes to spend time in a place like this. Hello, boy. Look at those big eyes just looking up at us. How's that, Viram? Can you see him? Yeah, is that better? It's a weird view to be looking down on a leopard. It's not very often that you look down as steep as this onto a leopard itself, but he has the most beautiful eyes. Hello. What you been up to? Where have you been? Far too long that we haven't seen him. Oh, he's a beautiful cat though. He is going to be a seriously stunning individual when he's older in life. He really is got one of the most captivating markings on a leopard. That they dark and black and rich around his face, those light greenish eyes. You can see his ears are still in perfect condition, and he's got his mom's coat. He's got that darker kind of orangey gold coat, much darker than what we see from Hasana. So he's a really good looking individual, and one that I'm sure is going to captivate many in his life. Now, I'm going to sit and spend my afternoon with Thamba, because this was our kind of goal, was to try and find a leopard this afternoon, and I found my favorite individual, so I'm going to spend as long as I can with him, and hopefully we'll have an epic afternoon and he'll move around. But while we do that, Jamie has got something that is already on the move.
Well, everything's nervousness is really quite quickly explained now that we've found the lioness that has been wandering about. So I think that the jackal just kind of fell foul of the jumpiness that the lioness's presence invoked. Oh, we're gonna... Cheers, guys! She's looking absolutely glorious in the late afternoon sun. So the surprise that I was talking about was in fact Scar, who apparently is not far away from here at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to probably follow this lioness for a little bit, because she's been with him, she's been mating with him, and then we will come back and see if we can find Scar as it starts to get a bit dark, because of course as evening falls there's a good chance that he's going to be roaring. After a few days of mating, there will be two things on this lioness's mind. The first will be to reunite with her pride. The second will be to try and find some food. So generally, mating pairs will not feed while they are mating, and the female's estrous cycle lasts for a few days. So as a result, both of them tend to be quite hungry after they separate. Now, apparently she was mating with a young male, and then Scar sent him packing sometime last night and took over the whole process. I assume probably one of the young males with the collar, or the one with the collar, but I don't know. I'm not 100% certain. It's just the right area for that to be the case. She's most definitely on a mission, but I don't think that mission is hunting. I think that mission is food. Idiot. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, shopping. I think her mission is to reunite with her pride. Whenever we've seen lionesses mating, when the pride is around, you can actually see their desperation to try and get back to the rest of the pride. I don't know which lioness this is. I don't know which pride she belongs to. I'm going to say that judging by the direction that she's walking in, she could either be an Egyptian goose. That's the pride name. That's not an animal. She's definitely not a goose. Or she could be Magoro, or she could be Paradise. Quick phlegm and grimace. She's obviously smelled something nice there. But the way that she's walking out in the open like this, I don't think she's after anything. Theodore, it's actually quite difficult to tell when the lioness is in front of the antelope, because the shot becomes compressed. So she looks closer than she is. I think she's probably, I can't even see her anymore. I think she was probably around about 70 odd meters away. Let's go. Let's reposition, because there are some baby Topi up ahead, and baby antelope tend to make mistakes in situations like this when they panic. So she might decide to go for one. I don't think she will, though. No, she was more than that. She was about 100 meters. Yeah, she was about 100 meters from that antelope. 100 yards, give or take. And when an antelope can see a lion, they're comfortable. If they, I mean, they're not thrilled with the situation, but they are certainly more comfortable than they would be if they could simply smell a lion and not see it, because it's not really the lion that they see that's going to catch them.